have a complete spectrum, right? So this is y equals to x. And how shaders work is that this particular program here is executed for every single pixel. Every single pixel. There's no if I am this pixel, do this. No, you are one on the pixel, you figure it out by yourself. And then we inject time, and with time and position, you can technically do everything, but how, right? So if there's no if statement, what do you do, right? How do I break thing into like a nice little triangle? Well, that's what absolute value does, right? And if you want to move it around, you can do it like that, right? That's just high school math, right? And at one point you get into some more interesting stuff, but let's just take this, like absolute value of x, and try something with it, right? So right now you have color equals to 1, which gives you white completely, and color equals to 0 will give you black completely.
Can you zoom on the code?
Yeah, thanks. Yes. This is the most I can zoom. So if you do absolute value, let's see, frac cord is frac cord.x is the x coordinate. This is 1,000. Let's do minus 500, right? I'm just improvising on the spot. Hopefully, it actually works. And then you do this. And hey, you have let's center this a little bit more. There you go. And if you divide it a little bit less, then you have a thinner line. So you get how it works, right? You think about the math and all that. So what can you do with it? That was not meant to be funny.
It's not obvious.
Draw two spheres and then suddenly
Is
it's
that
like,
well, I'm going to show you now. So you get some interesting curves. So for example, sine of x gives you this, right, over time. And what about sine, the reverse sine of sine of x? Well, it gives you this. And you're like, okay, maybe I can make some jagged edge with it, right? It's really just a creative coding, right? And what about this? I just typed this earlier, and it gives me this little thing, so you don't have to repeat all the time. So all that to say, you can do lots of cool stuff. One of which I did was I made an entire Apple logo with only circles. So I was thinking, okay, well, you cannot mathematically approximate an Apple logo because of Bayesian curve, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to use circles, and it's just a combination of circles minus this circle, and this is the intersection of two circles, a leaf, right? And like, how do I make this happen with this kind of curvature? And then you try and it gives you this. So here you have it. This is Apple's. But the thing is, now you will say, like, just import an Apple Circle SVG and not on Figma or whatever. But can your Figma do this? So what I did was I took that and I said, well, on the Z index, I'm going to give it a little bit of depth. I'm just going to spin it. And I'm going to let it trail like this, and so it gives you that kind of effect. I think the mouse is supported. So then what? All these CSS, this is where I'm trying to get to. All these CSS effects are actually just one line away from shader code, right? In fact, these declarations are actually smaller and more concise than the CSS equivalent. Did you know that when you use a filter, blend, darken, it's actually just a mix? A min and a max, and these are all actually just math operation on the pixel. Addition is literally adding the color of two pixels together. Now you know. This is something else I did, which is when I finished watching Black Panther, I was like, this is great. So that was a tunnel fight at the end, and I took the theme of the protagonist, right, Chala and Killmonger and Okoye, basically swap between them. And there's supposed to be music here, but it's not playing, but it's all the stars and the beats is literally written in code. Like I said, there is no asset whatsoever. So you should be hearing the beat right now, but just imagine this. So if this is a little bit too much, let's ray trace a little bit less here. So you get 2 degrees, and 1 degree you get nothing. 4 degrees you get a lot, but it's a little bit too much. So this is all live, and this is 180 lines of code, which is not bad. Okay. And you can do icons. There is no SVG. There's no bitmap here. Every single icon is around 10 lines of code. And I've also animated them because it feels better. It's the upper bound of the medium, in my opinion. These icons are not designed by me. These are designed by the Book of Shader guy, who is a very prolific shader user. I did a little bit things here. Now, okay. So what does that have to do with anything? So at one point I was making these shaders and I wanted to send them over to my friends, right? But as you know or not, on iMessage, when you send like an HTML page, we're talking about copy pasting an HTML page. Dear Apple tells us that this is dangerous to open. You cannot open .html. What is this, right? So they disable JavaScript for your own security and for performance. And so basically, all these need JavaScript to set up all these things, right? So what do I have left? I only have HTML and CSS. So what I did was, I decided to use this mechanism, but I used to just line up a grid of spans, lots and lots of spans. And so this is pure CSS. There's no JavaScript on the page. This is every single cell here. It looks very low res, but every single cell is a span. And you put them into a 21 by 21 grid here. And this here, basically, I added a CSS class for span, right? And I use CSS variables. And if you have CSS variables and a single span, which is kind of like shader, and some max, min, mathematical arithmetic operations, and at the end you have a single cell which is to assign its background color, right, RGB, right? Then you get to have this. So this is also live. So 255 times 1, let's do times 1 plus 2 to add a little bit of flavor to it. And now this is blue. A little bit of red. 1.22. And then our flag corporate account. Maybe I should show this on my corporate laptop. So this is pure CSS. What I did here is I know the position of the span itself, right? And I know the time. The time is just literally a CSS keyframe that's looping around. And I inject adding this is the time I'm getting. So how is this done? Like this is like a reactive text editor, right? But there's no JavaScript. So what I did was I wrote the style inside the style tag, and the style tag is usually invisible. But if you put display block on the style tag, and then you start modifying it in userland, the style tag, it's like if you opened the inspector and started editing it. So that's how you get this kind of a playground, and this is pure CSS. Like this has no dependency, no JavaScript. You send it to someone and it's just gonna live forever, right? It's gonna outlive any of us. Like, all my work are obsolete and this will stay around. So we need to archive because it's so easy to archive. It's a copy paste away and there's body, some div tag, inside div. There are a few spans. And you have a single style tag that is exactly what you see is what you get, right? And what else can you do with it? Well, one thing I always wanted that Apple never really truly released to the web is hyperelliptical, like rounded corner, right? Like those more tasteful rounded corner. And some people will say yes, and some people have no idea what I'm talking about. See, this is why we need this on the web, so that we know what we're talking about. So on the web, you can only have circular rounded corners, which in shader speed means they're not C1, C2 continuous. They're not C2 continuous. Like the derivative is not smooth and whatever. It's ugly, right? So I decided let's bring this on the web, right? So I basically now you have a drop shadow, but if this resolution was 1,000 times higher, you'll know exactly what I mean. Right now, just imagine like this is like a style Steve Jobs would approve of if it was way better executed. Unfortunately, it do be like that sometimes. So, and how fast can we make that if we stretch this to the limit? Well, not much. This is animated. I try to make the ring, the Lord of Ring, and these styles are getting out of hands. Like these calculations, I don't have vector, arithmetics and all that. But if you're patient enough, like it just turns around. So let me show you what it looks like if you did actual shader. It looks something like this, which is pretty cool. So what I want to show through this is that if you just calculate how much faster this operates than the previous one, it's actually around 1 million times at least. Now we're not comparing apples to apple here, right? Because this is obviously made for medium. That's different than this. But I want this as a medium on the web. Right? I didn't really want this too much. Like this was a one-off configuration that we abused over 20, 30 years now, right? You can see the difference. So my question for you is, if you, like lots of these kind of emergent behavior, since neural networks are all taking off, lots of these emergent behaviors don't get to happen on the web because we are only capable of drawing here 400 pixels, right? 400 blocks. What if you can draw 1 million rectangles or 2 million rectangles? What kind of medium would you unlock? Well, we have the answer from our neighbor in the game industry, where they started by drawing 10 triangles, and then they made a ball with it, and then they started drawing 100, and now they're onward to drawing 1 billion triangle in real time, and now they're revolutionizing the whole film industry. Whereas we are still drawing 10 rectangles, right? Every time I switch back to this tab, this thing janks a little bit, and this is the fastest browser already for this kind of thing, right? Think about this a little bit. And also next time, if we're still lacking demos, I'll show you something even cooler. So,
Don't bring any demos next time.
Very questions?
Where did you learn that you could set display on the script tab?
You just sit down and you're like, okay, no JavaScript, and you think very hard, and that's like, that is the only answer, right? Like, I want this.
Does it work in Chrome?
Huh?
Does it work everywhere?
It works in Chrome as of March 7th, which is 3 days ago, because this one in particular, the heart, needs some trigonometric operation like sine, right? Here. And Chrome didn't ship sine for CSS. Look, like, keeping math, like I can't handle this thing. And then so they finally ship trigo functions. There's nothing else. There's no clan. There's no better math functions. So before that, in order to make that for Chrome, you should see the previous code. I basically approximated sine using like a polynomial, right? A linear approximation with only multiplication and and I trim it down and I reduce it so it was like a gigantic thing, just so that I can have the heart lifted like this. It's like that's not poetry, right? That's that's the opposite. Yes.
Have you thought to join the Chrome team? Like shape the feature you want?
I'm pretty sure that's not how you ship these features. You need to join these teams because that team needs to have 1 million x the performance of this in order to vary this, right? So we're talking about structural change, and joining the Chrome team won't make 1 million x difference. At best, if you're John Karma, you can make 10x difference. So you need to shift your perspective completely. Yes. I don't hate it. I'm using it.
Yeah, I was wondering the other one. What is the other one?
Because this doesn't run in Quick Look, because Quick Look has JavaScript disabled. So if you have a screen reader, you can still enjoy the change.
That's the entire motivation.
Yeah, I want to send these things as like in a distributed fashion over whatever chat app, right? So basically, this is the true OG and NFTs. Right? It's on the blockchain. It's on any blockchain.
You can also add a WebKit view to the.
Yes, it is a WebKit view like that. Yes.
Yeah, what do you think about drawing the entire UI like through WebKit?
Yeah, we'll talk about that next time. It's an okay idea for some.